For do not let any of you suffer as a murderer or a thief or a doer of evil or as a meddler. A meddler. Well, my mother used to call a Buttinsky. Nothing worse than a Buttinsky. Nothing worse than unsolicited advice. An interloper, an intruder. Someone who inserts themselves into your life and preaches the moral high ground or the direction or path you should be taking, or tells you what you've done wrong or how you've done it wrong or how you could have done things better. This person is reviled. And yet we often find ourselves in many instances doing this. Now, we do it a lot with our children, and it's warranted there, certainly. But to be a nosy body and a busy body, you know, we talked about subtraction through addition and how we rid ourselves of bad habits by crowding the bad habits out. I talk about how to push out all the junk food from your life by eating so much good food that you don't have room for the junk food. We talk about, instead of using foul language, we use language where we praise, where we give others esteem, and where we build others up, encourage them, inspire them. When we talk about negative actions or negative words, instead we flip those into positive actions, positive words, negative mindset into positive mindset. We do so much of this that there's no room for the negative. We talk about how instead of complaining, what we do is we speak of gratefulness. We speak of being thankful for the bounty that we have, and we rejoice because in Yahuwah, Yahusha, we have so much. How can we not rejoice? How can we not be great? How can we not be thankful? It's impossible. When you live in Yahuwah, Yahusha, you will know what I mean, because it is physically impossible to be ungrateful any longer. Because his living law, his covenant is written on your heart, it's written on your DNA, it's written in the fabric of your genetic code. It is, you truly understand what it means to know that you're blessed, and that you have so much that your cup runneth over, and that you're compelled to share the good news. Shout from the rooftops about Yahuwah, Yahusha, and the Ruach, the set-apart spirit, the breath of Yahuwah that lives within you and compels you to walk the path of righteousness, the path of truth, the path that leads us to the narrow gates of the kingdom to come, where he will reign and he will crush all evil and sin and decadence, depravity, defilement, and debasement. Crush it underneath his feet. Crush Hashatan, Lucifer, the demons of this world, the psychic vampires, negative influencers, corrupters, evildoers, all of them dissolved, smashed beneath his feet. And so we speak from that position of gratefulness and thankfulness, and we rejoice in that. So by doing all of these things, instead of gossiping about people, talking about their failings, and finding sick moments of joy in speaking with your social circle about how this one or that one got their comeuppance. Instead of doing that, what we do is we speak as much as we can of how Yahuwah Yahusha has blessed people, how Yahuwah Yahusha has blessed us, how Yahuwah Yahusha can bless, and how people have managed to find joy, find salvation, find peace in Yahuwah Yahusha, but also how people have made a good lives for themselves, how people have done positive things. We speak of uplifting things, encouraging and inspiring moments, again, crowding out our lizard-like instinct to speak about how other people are being torn apart, how other people are getting their just desserts, how other people don't deserve what they have. And that leads us into this concept of being a Buttinsky, an interloper. Before we ever take the action. The stance that we know so much, that we're so much better than the person that we're interloping on, that we should tell them what they're doing wrong with their life or how they should live their life. Don't get me wrong, unless you've been invited, unless you've been asked for advice, unless the red carpet has been rolled out for you such that people are seeking your insight. Other than that, before you decide to insert yourself in the issues, challenges, problems of other people, get control of your own life. Look in your own house. Because your house can always be tidied up. Your house can always do with a makeover. Your house can always be revised, reconstructed, recreated, and reborn in Yahuwah Yahusha. The worst thing you can do when you live in Yahuwah, which you won't if you live in Yahuwah Yahusha, but the worst thing you can do is knowing His grace, knowing His salvation, and knowing how you were once like the people you're butting into, whose lives you're meddling in. And you were once like they, and probably still are like they. Just like the Pharisees, hypocrites. Woe to you, Pharisees, hypocrites, liars, worshiping with their lips, not with their hearts. If you're so pious, if you're so holier than thou, such that you deem it your position to step into the lives of other uninvited, refrain. Show that discipline we spoke of yesterday. Show that temperance, that strength of, that measure, that gives you that countenance and that character of strength such that you can resist giving into your passions. And one of those passions, one of those emotions, one of those things that is hard to, besides anger, besides jealousy, besides envy, besides rage, one of those things that's really hard to control is to insert yourself into the lives of others and give them unsolicited advice. Before you do, show that you have the strength and the discipline to be able to yield, to be able to hold yourself back, to be able to restrain yourself from opening your yap and vomiting your insights and advice and your so-called knowledge on other people. Because you need to look at yourself. You need to look at your own soul. You need to look at your own relationships. You need to look at your own household. You need to look at your own direction. Get that under control first. Get your life in order first. Get every aspect of your life perfect first before you ever decide that you have the right to insert yourself, to interlope in someone else's life. And then you'll realize, wait a second, it's impossible to live a perfect life, to make every perfect move, because we are imperfect beings. We're fallible. We're filled with mistakes. We're filled with negative emotions. That's why it's called the war within. We're constantly warring with ourselves to be better, to be stronger, to be more disciplined, to be more loving, to be more giving, to be more sharing, to be kinder, to be gentler, to be more restrained in our approach, and to live in Yahuwah Yahusha, and live by that ultimate commandment to love Yahuwah with all of our hearts, souls, minds, and strength, and to love our fellow man as we love ourselves. And so, when you realize you'll never be perfect, you'll understand that you have no right. We have no right to be a Buttinsky and to meddle in the lives of others and tell them how they should be living, because our house will never be perfect such that someone else couldn't do that to us. And if you think you need that, then what are you going to do? You'll go seek it out. You'll find it. Hopefully what you'll do is you'll turn to Yahuwah Yahusha and pray and meditate and contemplate and ruminate on the Word and receive the Word. Ask Him for His forgiveness. Knock on His door. It's immediately answered. It fills you with the Ruach, and your life changes immediately. It'll never be perfect. Not until we enter the narrow gates of the kingdom to come, where He will live amongst us once again, and we will be able to love Him, honor Him, glorify, worship, and praise Him with all our hearts, souls, minds, and strength in a manner that truly pleases Him most, because we will finally be perfect once again as we were when we were in Eden. And then there'll be no need to be a meddler, because everyone will live truly in Yahuwah Yahusha. No mistakes, no fallibility, no imperfections. But until then, we are bound to trip up. We are bound to stumble. But that's okay, because we live now with the Ruach, the set-apart spirit, the breath of Yahuwah, the Most High. He who creates, the Most High who breathes life, the Most High who brings into existence, lives within us, lives right in here, in this temple that He has blessed us with, that we are grateful for, such that we honor Him, and we honor His temple by taking care of it, by not disrespecting it, by not consuming drugs, by not consuming alcohol, by not consuming junk food, by by training, so that the set-apart spirit of Yahuwah has a place to dwell in that is healthy, robust, vibrant, and strong, as much as it can be. But this is His creation, such that we should never disrespect it. And so instead of butting into people's lives, instead of being an interloper, an intruder, and inserting ourselves such that we're a holier-than-thou preacher, because everyone is holier than thou when they preach, because their lives have their imperfections, have their troubles, have their issues, have their challenges, such that none of us are so lofty that we should take the high ground and tell others how to live. Because the same, he who cast the first stone, glass houses. We should build our people up. We should encourage them, not by berating them, not by disciplining them unduly. We're not talking about our children here, because our children, in many instances, need our unsolicited advice, but also this other part, which I'm about to say, is paramount. Otherwise, your unsolicited advice is meaningless, and this is only for your children. And when it comes to all other people, other than your own family, other than your children, this second part of it means everything, because this is the only place you have a right to be a meddler and a Buttinsky. Which, in actual fact, means you're not a Buttinsky, and you're not an interloper, and you're not an intruder. And that is by living as an example for what it is you want others to do, how you want others to act, how you believe others can better their lives. Live as that example and let them see that without admonishing them, without intruding upon their actions and their words and their deeds and how they live their life. Without getting on the pulpit and beating it, fire and brimstone, about how someone should not be doing this or not be doing that. You be that example. You live that life. You put yourself out there, truly out there, and live as that example. And those who need to see will see when the time is right. Those who need to hear when the time is right will hear. And those who need to know when the time is right, they will know, because they will have been called by Yahuwah, Yahusha. And they will see you, someone who's important in their lives. Or maybe not. Maybe just someone they've seen speaking or talking or writing or on a post somewhere, living the life that they deem worthy enough that they should change course and emulate. Only then, in that way, are you able to effectively hold true to any advice you would give, which you don't give. The advice exists. The advice is evident. The advice is apparent in just you being everything that it is you would have others be, that everything that you would have others do, every answer that you have for someone else's mistakes, be it, live it, and let them see what it's like. Should you be so perfect? Should you be so great? Should you be so grand? And of course, we all know we're not, but we all have areas of our life that we're really good at, that we're expert at, that we're strong at. And in those other areas where we're weak, we work on it, we pray on it, we ruminate, contemplate, and meditate on it, and we do our best to be disciplined and restrained and have forbearance and temperance and act from a place of good measure, so that we strengthen our resolve and strengthen our character and strengthen our countenance, such that others who are lost can see that, hey, if I, someone who was radically imperfect, completely malfeasant, an absolute evildoer and sinner in all ways that you can imagine, if I can change my life and if you can change your life, then those lost can find their ways to Yahuwah Yahusha as well. And they can see that if we've been saved, if wretches like us have been saved and now live with exuberance, encouragement, inspiration, and because the breath of Yahuwah, the Ruach, animates us in a way heretofore unforetold, in a way that we could have never imagined, in a manner that boggles people's minds, because they're like, oh my, you were that person who was drinking, drugging, overeating, overweight, gluttonous, out of shape, pleasure-seeking, hedonistic, decadent, depraved. You were all those things, foul-mouthed, the gossip, everything. And you're a completely different person now. And you've done it. You've done it by receiving the word of Yahuwah Yahusha, that we should love Yahuwah Yahusha with all our mind, heart, soul, and strength, and love our fellow men as we love ourselves, the simple commandment from which the fount from which all good things, all productive, all wholesome things stem, such that all other commandments are filled. All of what Elohim expects of us is followed through on as best we can, because the Ruach now guides us, and we are healed from within and from without. His light shines down on us, dissolves all the darkness that we constantly stumbled around in. Not that we won't make mistakes here and there, but the Ruach keeps us on the straight and narrow. We may sway a little bit here and there, but for moments, seconds, never days, never weeks, never months, no, moments where we're psychologically, we might have a slip. We might stretch up, and we immediately pull back, because the Ruach, the breath of Yahuwah, compels us, pushes us, pulls us, and keeps us right back on that straight and narrow path. And if you do mess up for a day or a week, that's okay. On your knees, confess to Yahuwah, not to any man, not to any holy one, not to any so-called magi, yogi, mentor, rabbi, priest, teacher. None of these wise men. No, you do not. The only gateway to Yahuwah is Yahusha. And he gave you the keys. It's right there in the good news. You can go right to his teachings. You don't need anyone to guide you, direct you, interpret for you. It's right there. And it's so simple. If you only take away one thing from the good news, take this away. Love Yahuwah with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your fellow man as you love yourself. And you will live out the glory of the Supreme Elohim, of the Most High. But in living the way that you would preach, you're doing a service for people. You're doing a mitzvah for people. You're being a blessing for others, because you're not being a horrid, grumpy, know-it-all, busybody that inserts themselves into other people's life uninvited, unasked, and unwanted, such that nothing but enmity results from it, which often is never spoken of, but builds up within the person, and you repel people because you can't help yourself. Instead, you become a productive force for good in people's lives by just simply living what it is that you would have others do to solve their problems. Just being that example is enough. And when it comes to your kids, imagine telling them how they should. That old saying, do as I say but not as I do, that corrupts everything. That discredits everything that you stand for. When you tell them how they should live their lives, but you live it the complete opposite. No, that is the worst. So in the one area where you have a right to give unsolicited advice, and that's for your children, in that one place, in your own household, where you have that one right, where it is expected of you, so you can raise your people right. You raise your children in the right way. You have to in that instance, give them unsolicited advice, whether they like it or not. But it's worthless if you're not living that example. You tell them not to drink, but you drink. You tell them not to do drugs, but you do drugs. You tell them not to overeat, but you overeat. You tell them not to eat toxic, chemical-laden junk food, but you do that. You tell them to spend their time gaining knowledge and study, but you don't gain knowledge and study. You tell them, you preach to them the word, but you only worship with your lips and not with your heart. Then don't be surprised when they do everything to disappoint you. And don't be surprised when every move they make is the opposite of what you've told them to do, because they are a sponge. They soak up everything that you do. They see everything that you do. And you think they ignore it. You think they turn a blind eye to you. You think they don't realize it. They see and know everything about you. And so practice with your children. Practice what you preach. And then for everyone else, stay out of their lives. Stay out of their affairs. Stay out of their business. And just be a steadfast example for all those around. And if they need to know, believe they're going to seek you out, they will know. And that is good enough, because that will make the difference. You being that change will be the change that they need when they need it. Because those who are called will be called at the time and the place when it is right. And for those preachers out there, those fire and brimstone preachers who are out there trying to convert people, you're out there, what are you trying to do? You're trying to close a sale. You're trying to close a sale. And if someone needs to be sold and closed on Yahuwah Yahusha, such that you convince them, how long is that going to last if they truly haven't come with their hearts open, with their ears open, on their knees, truly asking to receive the word and receive his salvation? How is it going to take? It'll never take. So don't try to sell and close people on Yahuwah Yahusha, because he will call them. And if you hear the call, if you hear your conscience ringing, that you should be doing this and not that, you should be moving in this direction and not that. If you feel your heart pulling you in the right direction, yet everything you do is in the wrong, and you know it, and you feel the anguish and the grief and the guilt deep inside because you're not aligned, you're not congruent with the calling, because you know what's right, because Yahuwah Yahusha is banging on your door, is beckoning you to come home and come to him. And that's your conscience. That's that voice that you hear deep inside you. That's your instinct telling you what's right. And you always know what's right. Unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath. And even they know what's right. Sociopaths have no impulse control, so they can't help it. And psychopaths, that defect, they absolutely know what's right. They choose to do wrong. But they have the guile and the craftiness to control their impulses and put on a mask such that you never see what they really are. These are the demons of this world. These are the psychic vampires of this world. These are the evil whisperers of this world. And we would do well to wear the armor of Yahuwah, which is the faith, all faith and belief and love in Yahuwah. And in so doing, we wear his armors, that we wear his protection, we wear his shield, such that we are impenetrable, impregnable to the spears and the arrows and the slings of the evil ones. And in so doing, others who need that strength, others who need that temerity, others who need that discipline, others who need to wear that armor, when the time has come, they will hear it, they will know it. And as you are hearing this now, if you feel it's resonating, if it's tugging at your heart, if it's compelling your conscience to be true to what you know to be right, then hold on, grab a hold. Do not let him go, because like the sun moves across the sky, and when that light hits you, it will move away from you. Do not let that happen. The minute you feel his light, grab a hold of it. Hold on so that it never leaves you. And ask him to enter your heart and write the new law on your heart, so that you are once and forever forgiven in the eyes of the Father for all that you feel that anguish for all that you feel that guilt for all that you have suffered and been in pain for your entire life. Now in coming to him, the light fills you up. Hold on to it, because that's your calling. He is calling you, and now is your moment, because it is now that it will take. No preacher will be able to convert you or close you on that sale. You have to make that sale. It's your own heart that has to receive. It's your own will that has to be rendered asunder for the will of Yahuwah Yahusha. So let us now, in so being saved, in so being redeemed, in so being delivered, in so wearing his armor, wearing the helmet of salvation, being filled with the Ruach, the set-apart spirit, the breath of Yahuwah, as we wield it as a sword that obliterates all darkness, negative energy, all chaotic thoughts, all wayward frequencies, obliterated all evil whisperers, corruptors, evildoers, misleaders, deceivers, psychic vampires, negative influencers. The demons of this world don't stand a chance against us, because we radiate with the Ruach. It pushes off of us like a force field of beautiful, beaming, powerful, glorious light of Yahuwah Yahusha, and it dissolves it all as we walk on this narrow path through the narrow gates into the kingdom to come. And so let us march together, unstoppable, unconquerable, undefeatable, unassailable, undeniable, ceaseless, and relentless, to kingdom come.